Well, hello, radiant friends. How are you? Welcome back to Walking in Magic. And today we're going to sit in a space of tender, gentle, lunar magic. As I record this today, we are in the full moon in Cancer, the very last full moon of 2023. And I thought this would be a really beautiful moment to get a little bit of inspiration. And so this is what this video is intended to be. I do hope you stick around. Thank you for being here, for subscribing and commenting. It really does support the work that I'm doing, and I hope to continue doing for many more weeks to come in the future, to really keep this a space that is vibrant and full of possibility and magic and hope and optimism, and gentle reminders like this one to pause. So we're in the whirly swirly time of Christmas. So if you're celebrating Christmas, Merry Christmas. Whatever it is that you're celebrating and that you align with, and your values and your spirituality and your culture, it's still a swirly whirly time, because most of us find ourselves in this turning moment of turning, right? As we're concluding one year, and may it come to a beautiful, graceful conclusion, even if you're kind of bumping into things as we finish off. That's okay too. And may 2024 bring about a sense of renewal and optimism and a gentle pulse and rhythm of possibility and magic in your own life and in your world. There's so much I've been sitting with, and so I'll try to capture, as best as I can in this space here. But there's always many threads that are coming through. And the thread that I wanted to focus on today really does have to do with the idea of aligning with the moon to create a rhythm, a pulse of practice. So in our world, and again, whatever you align with, I think one thing we can all bring into sort of a common space of intention and connection with is actually working with the moon. And when people ask me, where do I even begin having a magical practice? And dare I say, a spiritual practice as well. And of course, there's, every spiritual thread and sort of, let's call it container, has its own pulses and rhythms of how you follow that particular inclination, right? But there's one thing that can also connect you to the deeper space of spirituality within yourself. And as I've mentioned, in 2024, we're going to be entering into this really profound opportunity for what I'm calling self-advocacy. It's not something I came up with, of course, but it's a term that just really dropped in. So this idea of self-advocacy, which really boils down to this understanding of who you are, radiating that out. And it has dimensions of understanding who you are and what you need and what you desire in order to feel really anchored in yourself and be able to spread out your light in a more authentic way. And it also has a beautiful dimension of this sense of responsibility around you are the one you've been waiting for, and not expecting anybody else to fill in any gaps. And yet we still require, and as I sit here just literally, like, I always do these unscripted, but this one feels extra unscripted, in the sense that there's part of me that's like, what do I even say? And I think that's actually beautiful, and I'm going to keep going with it, because there's a lot of but like living, breathing energy in the not knowing. And I want to be an advocate, and I want to be an agent for us feeling more and more safety in dwelling in the unknown, because that unknown space, that liminal space, is really pregnant with possibilities. And it's where that void of no thing of and everything is possible. And that's not something that we reach at like a pinnacle point in our spiritual development. I think what we do is we get closer and closer to feeling more, again, safe and at home in the unknown, so that our fear response doesn't get triggered as easily, And then we can dwell in that space because our fear response, the fight or flight, will want to kick us out of a situation that it feels is unsafe. So we'll get a little bit closer to sort of this mysterious realm of like, oh, what is this? I don't know. And then there's a mechanism within us that wants to keep us safe that basically like jolts us out of it. And then we go, no, 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 no. And if something that established religions have done, and I have a whole personal history of what that means for me and how I grew up, and they hold a lot of beauty, and also they hold a lot of points that I'm no longer aligned with as I've understood more and more my own path, and as I weave together lots of other paths of spiritual understanding and mysticism and all that. But the one thing that they know how to do is to give you a framework, right? So there's not a whole lot of mystery. There's more of the master this framework. Do this, and this is when you do it and how you do it. And they create a sort of time frame and a container and a framework for you to work that religion, that spiritual path. Okay? So what happens when we dive into our own wanting to connect the dots in our own spiritual space, and we sort of say, you know what, I'm going to put that framework aside even for a moment so that I go into an exploratory space. First, we're dealing with a potential guilt around what that could mean and putting that aside. But also what a gift for you to say, you know what, I'm just going to park it for a moment. Doesn't mean I'm going to let it go completely. I'm just going to park it and I'm going to refocus my energy and open up to something else. And that's what a lot of us are doing when we enter this space of like soul growth, spiritual self-development, the famous sort of like this journey of kind of awakening to something else. And for a lot of us, it might happen in sort of this midlife terrain, end of your 30s, early 40s, which coincides with your Uranus opposition, by the way, depending on your chart. It's a time when we're like, oh, wait a minute, because part of the work of Uranus is to take you from what you've been conditioned to follow to what your essence is. And boy, oh boy, is there a lot of conditioning that we follow when we follow a certain religious path. So there's a framework there. So then the question becomes, well, there's another space, there's another framework that could we fall into, that could we follow so that our mind is always trying to help and support us. The challenge is that we've put the mind ahead of the heart and the spirit and the soul and basically most endeavors that we do in life that we have done. Again, because the mind might be considered something that's a little bit more like easier to understand, which doesn't make any sense because the brain is this incredibly vast, mysterious landscape in itself. But when we do things from that logical perspective, then it's like, okay, this is what it is. And then we start tapping into the world of, oh, well, but what is my intuition telling me? And, oh, what does my heart feel? And heart before head. And who am I being rather than what am I doing? And all this stuff can send you into a tizzy also, which then kind of recoils you back into a space of just do the thing you were doing before. And then you start questioning yourself again, like, wait, but this doesn't work. So there's got to be something else. There's something more. I'm meant for more. What is my calling? What is my purpose? What does my soul want? And then it brings you into everything from oracle cards to building your altar to am I following a witchy path? To astrology, to wanting to visit maybe a medium or a psychic to see, oh, what we're looking for answers. We're looking for answers, and we're ultimately, I think, continuously looking for a framework. So we can say to ourselves, you know, hey, mind, you who are looking for this framework, it's okay. It's not unsafe to be in the realm of the unknown, this meandering path, which is fueled by intuitive knowing, which is basically like an untethering of everything that you kind of thought you knew before and an allowing of new information to come through. And the mind is still wants to be supported so that it becomes the tool that you need to move forward, so that your heart can then lead the way while your mind can be what I'm ultimately calling, and one of the threads that I know I'm going to work on this week here in the space, and for myself and the people I work with closely, is that the mind, and I'm talking about the mind, your brain, your mind being the delivery system of your soul. Okay, the delivery system of your soul. So then it goes, okay, well, what is the framework? I want to understand the sort of, what is this? What is the form? And there's these other really beautiful threads that are connected here as well, having to do with Saturn and what it's doing in the sky right now. Saturn right now is in the sign of Pisces. It just entered there. It's like 3 degrees Pisces right now. So it is just starting its journey. And Saturn in Pisces wants to help us bring our dreams into form. Basically, provide a framework and a container for your soul to express itself. If we see Pisces as this like space, this beautiful, ethereal, all that is kind of, archetype. Pisces is a lot of things. And that's one of them, is just the, I don't even know. It's like, the connection to everything. And then Saturn says, great, I love that you want to be connected to everything. But then how do you deliver that in the 3D world? What is the delivery system? What is the framework? What is the solid, not just the foundation, but the building blocks of this, so that you can then basically contain that magic and build that forward and share it forward? And if you're somebody who feels connected to sharing the things that, sharing in any way, through writing, speaking, art, just, creating things, any of those, then your brain is absolutely the delivery vehicle for all of those things. For a while, when we start to veer into this more mystical, intuitive, magical, let's connect with our divine feminine and all of that, then we might walk kind of far away from the realm of the mind, the realm of the masculine action, the realm of, okay, what does it take to actually deliver these beautiful, soul-connected, spirit channeled in thoughts into form? And then you basically end up with, for lack of a better term, like this ethereal goo, where you're like, I'd like to have everything. And then it's challenging to bridge heaven and earth, to bridge your divinity with your humanity. And that's one of the things that I'm continue to lock in more and more in terms of my purpose and my calling and my vocation, is to support people like you that are on that curious path to find the points of intersection between your divinity and your humanity, right? That point of intersection is where truly this magic thing happens, where we create, we bring things into form. I then call that creatrix consciousness, this understanding that we can be at that intersection. And that requires some form and framework. That requires a certain thing to follow. Enter the moon. The moon, I think, is this incredible resource and ally for us to find this rhythmic practice and framework to actually heal our mind in a really powerful way this year, lunation by lunation, to heal your mind, to bring things into form while you release that which no longer serves you. Because in order for you to expand into and have the space to really understand the depths of your purpose and your calling in a way that is embodied, there's so much that we can filter out because of the traditional sort of fears, patterns, belief systems that we've carried in, that we must be in a space of curiosity and questioning around in order to understand, how does this fit into my framework and where does it not anymore? And the moon, and this is the beautiful, the phrase, one of the phrases and things I want to land here, is really like the metronome for your spirit. Think about that this year as we're turning the dial into 2024. The moon, I think, wants to be a metronome for your mind. And this is where there is that intersection between your humanity and your divinity. The moon is the perfect gateway and portal for this, because we can see her every single night with our physical eyes. Our human selves can see her. We can experience her. We can look at her, we can chart her path. When she's new and we can't see her in the sky, we know she's there, right? Everybody, that you can all see her, right? It brings me to that song, okay, from that beautiful movie. What was it? The about that little mouse called Fievel. I loved that movie. American something. And there's that song, like this whole idea of beneath the pale moonlight, like we're all around the world underneath the same moonlight. Beautiful. Someone's thinking of me and loving me tonight. Okay, so this is why, this is an example of that. This is an example of just opening yourself up to what wants to come through. And then that sends me personally in this whole like beautiful symbolic trail of, oh, what does that mean? And this little mouse who goes out to find his family and that finds himself basically alone in the world, going through this epic hero's journey, this teeny tiny mouse in this big, big world that he doesn't understand, going through this hero's journey, going through all the joys and the sorrows, the discovery, the pain. And isn't that so connected and related to our own soul and spiritual journey? Fievel, and I loved that movie when I was a kid. Oh my God. If you're an 80s kid, you'll know. And if not, you'll probably know as well. So the moon, beautiful Mama Luna, she wants to help us this year. She wants to be the metronome for our mind. And what does that mean? That means that we can follow this incredibly magnificent framework every 2 weeks, like clockwork. Because here's the thing is, while living and breathing in the realm of the divine feminine, which is very amorphous and all about receptivity, is just the way, it's the way, like it is the way to birth these new realities that we're like, we want to birth through. We want to be a channel for that to birth through. We still require, and because we're working in this 3D earthly reality and these human bodies that follow a certain, there's structures and frameworks that we follow. So in order to really bring these two worlds together, we need an ally. And this is where I think La Luna really wants to help us. So if you've been working with the moon before, amazing. Like I've been working with her for a while. I love her. I have a great, fruitful relationship with her. So this just feels like taking it to another beautiful level and dimension of my connection with her. Also with Saturn, who wants to be this agent of helping us bring things into form. But if you've never worked actively with the moon before, and I want to remind you, no matter what spiritual path you follow, the moon is something that is just you for you. It is part of your path of self-spiritual advocacy. Think about how you want to advocate for yourself and your spirit this year, how you want to stretch and grow and expand in new ways. The questioning process is innately human. If we didn't question and discover and seek out and look at new expanses, nothing would be discovered, nothing would be created. So if you're feeling like you've been following a certain pattern that's no longer aligned with who you are and you're questioning it, it's normal. I think it's super healthy. I think it's actually the way to grow, expand, change, contract, release, all of these things. If you feel any guilt around that, that's normal too. You maybe have been following a certain rhythm or a path and now you're like, but that just doesn't fit anymore. What else is there? So my invitation and encouragement is to settle into following that and find the resources and the flow where you can explore. You don't have to know anything to ask the questions. You don't have to know. This isn't a test. There's no rate of success of how well you can work with the moon. There is simply the question, the inquiry, the invitation. This is super gentle and also profoundly like onward energy, like leaning forward. If you're somebody who desires to heal your mind, whatever that means for you, heal your mind, heal your thoughts, heal your beliefs, heal your patterns, I really think the moon is here to support us this year specifically. So the moon is becoming a metronome for our mind. And so let's connect the dot back to as I record this, it is the last full moon of the year, which is in Cancer. Beautiful Luna is in Cancer, the sign of the mother. She's very much at home in this moon. This is her space. This is where she loves to dwell, right? And then the sun is in Capricorn. Capricorn ruled by Saturn. Capricorn, the sign of growth and ambition and climbing your mountain. We see this mountain looming ahead of us of 2024 of where are the ways that we want to take our own growth. Your mountain is yours and yours alone. Don't follow anybody else's. Create your own. So Capricorn, the sun is in Capricorn, the sign of the father, this paternal energy, and the moon is in Cancer, the sign of the mother, this maternal energy. I want to bring us back and connect another beautiful dot here to Christmas. And again, regardless of what spiritual beliefs you follow, hear me out. Because the truth is that the archetype and the spirit and the energy of Mother Mary is one that is very connected to the divine feminine energy that is blossoming within all of us, okay? And she is playing her role. So what just happened yesterday or overnight over the 24th, right? As the story goes, she's in a manger in Bethlehem and she gives birth to this little bouncing baby boy. Now, I just want you to, whether you are a mother right now, you certainly had a mother, you know a mother, and you know mother maternal energy, whatever it is you've given birth to in your life. But I want you just to take a moment and close your eyes. And again, whatever religion you follow, just play along. Because what we're tapping into is not Christianity or Catholicism. We are tapping into the energy of Mother Mary, of this courageous, brave, tender, valiant woman who said yes to something that she had no idea what would bring to her life. It was basically like thrust upon her, and she goes, okay, sure. And then it happens, this very rapturous moment of giving birth, right? Giving birth, and then she finds herself swaddling this baby. He's a baby. He's crying his eyes out. He's suckling from her breast. She's surrounded by animals, and all of a sudden she starts to get all these visitors. She is in this moment right now where you tap into her energy. She's feeling raw and tired, and that sense of like, okay, and now what? Did you know, maybe you do, but good reminder that the 12 days of Christmas are actually happening right now. The 12 days are not preceding Christmas. They're happening in between Christmas Day and the Epiphany, which is when the three wise men are set to come and visit the baby in the manger. Those are the 12 days. And there's lots of really beautiful ways to bring an energy of intention into those 12 days. One of the things I'm doing this year as a tiny tangent, there's an incredible astrologer that I follow who does this practice, and she's been doing it, she says, for like 90 years. 90 years. Did I just say 90 years? May it be so. 20 years. But she basically takes on, and I'll put the link to a video below so you can check it out. But she takes the 12 days of Christmas and does these 12 holy nights and holy days of sitting with each of the astrological signs, beginning with Capricorn, because that's the energy we're in right now. You can also begin with Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, if that's your jam. But I'm going to put the link below in case you want to just also, it sparks your curiosity. I love sharing this stuff. And so I'm doing it this year myself, and I started yesterday. I have this little journal with me. So there's lots of different ways to sit in this energy of these 12 holy nights. They can also be this space of sort of expansion and almost contraction of what's going to happen as we intentionally shift into the new calendar year. This period of time feels very swirly-whirly, I think also for the reason that it's actually a time of deep rest and it's a time of recalibration and reset, but the world around us wants us to be in this sort of almost chaotic energy of doing, of expectation. And I want to bring us back into the energy of the moon and this full moon that we sit in, and this energy of Mother Mary sitting with this new being of light and love. And Jesus is an archetype of channeling all of those things into the world, right? Another just master on the path along with many others. And here she is. And nobody gave her a guidebook. She's a first-time mama. She's literally in the manger surrounded by animals, as the story goes. And by the way, it is said that also Jesus was born in around April, not this time. So as we peel back the layers of how the stories were created over time, there's lots more. But for now, let's just sit with the energy of this story, right? And again, really focusing in on Mother Mary. Why? Because the moon also has this maternal energy. And so just like Mother Mary is swaddling this baby and giving him warmth and love, the moon can do the same for you and for me and for us. And the moon can become this energy, not maternal in the sense that she's telling you what to do, but maternal in the sense that she's holding space for you to grow, to guide you gently by saying, hey, this is what you can work on for these next 2 weeks. Which then, by the way, how does the mind play into this? Our minds love to have something to chew on, something tangible, which is where the language of astrology is so powerful, because it really does bridge our humanity with our divinity in incredible ways. So here we are with this moon that's changing signs all the time, and then it's changing from full to new to full to new. Do you hear that beeping in the background? There's a car alarm. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's doing this very like metronome kind of. And I could either be really upset. Well, I wouldn't be really upset right now. I don't really get that upset anymore, thankfully, about things like that. But okay, it's gone. But it was almost like pointing at the click, click. You know what a metronome is, right? Like when someone's playing the piano, it basically marks the rhythm of the notes of the, even that music I'm sitting with, there's a limited amount of notes and they're always structured in the same way, right? There's beats, but you can make an endless combination of different songs and intentions. Like think about how many songs exist in the world with basically the same building blocks. It is like profound. So here's Mama Moon, who we can see and connect with every night in the sky. And in every instance, she's in a different phase. For the sake of ease, I say, let's just connect with the full moon and the new moon. If you want to go deeper, have at it. It's really beautiful to also understand what happens in between. But full moons and new moons. Full moons, depending on the sign that they're in, will give us an opportunity to release something. There's something that comes to completion at that point, to fullness. So this full moon in Cancer could even be seen as this beautiful, big, pregnant belly. And then she comes to this completion point, and so profound that it's at the very end of this calendar year of 2024. And then we have a new moon in Capricorn that is almost the birth point. That's on January 11th, the birth point of this Capricorn energy. And Capricorn energy is, again, that mountain that we are climbing with the true sense of ambition, not aligned with external success, but with the leaning into, what are you loving and desiring and so passionate about that you are willing to work for it and to put in the work with diligence, feeling grounded, and using Saturn as your guide to take on that, step after step after step after step. It's really quite incredible. So in the energy right now, where we can be all swirly whirly, taking a moment to pause, taking a moment to be with what is it about you that wants to come through? What is it about you that wants to be born? What is it about you that's come to full term? There comes a point in the pregnancy when the mother can no longer hold the baby inside. It has to be born. There's a point and there's something in your life that is so ready and at the cusp of seeing the light. And maybe you're afraid of what that new beginning will be. I remember being very, very pregnant with Skylar. And the last 2 months of my pregnancy were a big challenge because I had to be in bed rest for 2 full months with a lot of pain, day and night, just lying in bed. And of course, that brought a lot of, different just time to ponder. And again, I was in pain the whole time, but it was still a really profoundly beautiful experience. I was so connected to my little guy. And I remember having a conversation with my own mom when I was about to give birth myself. And I said, what if I miss having him in my belly? And my mom, of course, was thinking probably like, I thought you'd be so ready because you've been in bed rest. And she was very tender with me, as my mom always is. And she said, what happens next is going to be so surprising and delightful and beautiful and challenging. But if you didn't give birth now, you wouldn't know. Because I really did feel like I was going to miss being in that pregnant state. As challenging as it was, I loved it. I loved the woman I felt that I was. I loved that responsibility of carrying that baby. I loved the intimacy of carrying him, just me and him. And then I felt like, well, once he comes out into the world, then he kind of belongs to the world. And this is true. And I never had a sense of, oh, you're my baby. I always knew and felt like, oh, I get to be a conduit for you to be born into the world. But it was like taking this beautiful soul and saying, hey, well, now I'm going to hold your hand in a different way. And what strikes me as a possible common denominator between that experience I had and when it comes for us to birth certain dreams or things into form is that we might also feel afraid of how things are going to change, of how dreams and ideas are first very intimate and born within us, and then they come out and see the light of day. And then it's a whole new ballgame. And especially as a new mother, and if you remember what it was like to be a new mother or the experience of mothering something for the first time, then it's a terrain of like, there's really no map. There could be books and videos nowadays and all these things to follow and apps, but there's really no map. There's no map. It's a felt experience, and we make mistakes along the way, and we keep going. The same experience was had by your own mother. So it's also a time for you to think about the different dimensions of maiden mother crone. When you are a maiden yourself and you have this possibility of things that will be born in the future, human and non-human things, the mother phase, not only you mothering, but also how you mother yourself. How you mother yourself and how were you mothered? And can you forgive and find spaces of healing in what can often be a tumultuous and bumpy relationship with our own mothers? And then the crone phase, which is that phase of deep wisdom, of having been through some things. So there's different dimensions to the mother conversation, different dimensions to the moon conversation. And today we can sit and kind of layer them together and ask ourselves, okay, well, how can I work closer with the moon to bring me into a sense of healing, of rhythm, that metronome for my own mind, to find a sense of peace and harmony in the potential chaos of my life, and to know that I am tethered to my truth? How can I come to understand my own energy as I mother things into the world or mother other humans if I am a biological or non-biological mother? How have I been mothered, and where are the spaces for me to heal that mother energy with my mother, biological, non-biological, the people that raised me, that provided that sense of womb protection? How do I honor my own womb, this eternal source and space of creation? And this space is, the word really is this sort of pregnant with possibility. It holds so many keys to our own healing of the divine feminine. So holding reverence for that womb space, holding reverence for that fullness, and then allowing it to continue on its path, allowing things not to be static. it's such a paradox, right? Because while we are really, I think our minds, right, are craving a sense of routine and some consistency, and this, again, this metronome, like, what's your rhythm? What's the rhythm that you're following? And maybe reacquainting yourself with what rhythm means and routine means and commitment to certain things that you want to do means. There's a whole conversation around what I'm calling the carousel that has connected to that. So maybe part of what you're doing is you're recalibrating your own understanding of rhythms and routines, but they cannot be so static. This is where if the masculine had its full, way, things would be very static. And then the feminine comes in and says, no, it's got to be focused and it's got to be flow. We need both all the time in this sort of harmonious, paradoxical state. Holding that is really the magic, and the possibility and the challenge. And it's a place that can cause a lot of distress in us because it's new. So when you're feeling fear or distress or like discomfort around something as you're shifting, remind yourself that you are in a process of metamorphosis and these things are new. We don't have the map. You don't have the map of who you are becoming. You shouldn't have the map. And if anybody tells you I have the map of who you are becoming, be very wary of that. Because how is that even possible? You are a unique, distinct, one-of-a-kind creation. So it's impossible for someone else to know. Only you will know. And that leaves us in the space of, oh, well, how do I find out? And part of it is, well, you actually don't really find out all the details because you kind of just have to keep going and growing and flowing and releasing and reclaiming and all that. And then again, I think here comes the moon to say, I got you. We can do this. You don't have to follow a stagnant pattern that's going to be rigid and keep you like, in this hamster wheel of go, go, go. You can dance around the fire, dance under the light of the moon and look at me and go, okay, this is a time to release. Okay, this is a time to renew and birth something. Okay, what does that look like in the different dimensions of who I am? The mental, the emotional, the spiritual, the physical, layer by layer by layer. Every full and new moon lunation is an opportunity for that. And I think that's something we can really not only get behind, but really thrive under. The other beautiful thing is this is a path that you can do very much on your own, but also very much in community. And it can ebb and flow. Sometimes you feel like it's just you, and sometimes it's a community thing. But part of the divine feminine connection really calls us into being in a communal space with others, harnessing that divine feminine energy, channeling it in from the moon and sharing it with each other. Which is why I think the time of holidays and celebrations also call us, because it is a time of connection that can feel disruptive because you're bringing in all these different energies of people together and different maybe belief systems and different ways of looking at the world. And it can be very jarring, especially if you're on your own path of growth and sort of disconnecting from that weird matrix that, a lot of people are following. But we're still like stewards of like in the earth creating things. So this paradox is something that we're holding all the time. And the holidays is a time when that paradox becomes even more heightened. And enter again the moon to help us heal the parts of us so that we can use the mind as a delivery system of the things that our soul wants to create. I wrote something yesterday on my journal. We had a Christmas morning that was different than other Christmas mornings, as life continues to change with, living under the shadow of a terminal illness for 3.5 years. It is part of who I am right now. It is absolutely marks what I do. I sent an email about this yesterday to my newsletter of how I was feeling. There's something else that I wrote here that I wanted to share. After a sweet and also salty Christmas morning meeting, it was like bittersweet. Joys and disappointments all swirling together. I wrote, life is different than the cookie cutter molds that we've been fed. And I don't want to perpetuate the myth And I wrote, and backward spells. Perpetuate the myth and the backward spells for me means that it makes me think about my son. It makes me think about how I want to move things forward. I thankfully have a really beautiful relationship to this time of year. Always have. Um, Deep gratitude for my parents for holding that. I know that's not everybody's situation. And now it just looks very different. So when I say I don't want to perpetuate the myth, it's the myth of things having to be a certain way, which then feels to me like this mold, this very strict mold that we have to pour ourselves into, that doesn't allow for any growth or expansion. That could be the shadow side of the Saturnian energy, that it has to be this way. Traditions are this, and they don't change. And then when we don't allow for the morphing and sort of expanding and contracting moment by moment as we evolve and change, that causes distress because it's just too tight. So molds aren't meant to be something where, think about a cake itself. Like think about you pour something in a mold, so it takes its form, and then you pour it out, and then it like has this more like organic feel to it. Same if you're pouring like concrete in a mold to build something, the mold eventually comes off. So there's something there about that as well. And the backward spells meaning the things that we've been taught that we have to either replicate time and time again, or they have to be a certain way. And then if they differ, they're not a certain way, then that causes distress. And it really takes you out of the moment and the whole point of it to begin with. And I wrote, I think I'm sitting with that today. This is the part I really want to share. Expectations and energies forced into tight molds, but energy is energy, so it will roam. This idea I was sitting with yesterday of like, oh, these energies and expectations that sometimes, a lot of times, with many different, not just the holidays, but so many other things we can think about that get want to be like fit into these tight molds, right? But energy is energy, so it wants to roam, it has to move. You can't just compress it and condense it into this one thing that's going to stay static forever. So I tell you again, if you are feeling the sense of static and whatever you've been following up to this point is just no longer in alignment with you, it's a matter of giving yourself permission and opportunity and just like, okay, to possibly see things from a new light. And there is where your soul will begin to grow and by leaps and bounds, grow and find many points of freedom. Freedom. This has been quite the meandering video, and I hope that you're tracking and following. I'd love to hear, by the way, in the comments. First, if you're here, drop a little moon emoji, full moon, and then another one, whichever one you prefer. Moon and another one of how you're feeling right now, maybe. But also share what's landing with you. We've gone through a lot of little meandering paths here, and hopefully the dots are connected. And also, it's okay to dwell in the mystery. Packaging things in a video format is also part of a mold in a container, which is kind of an art form to do. And also there's got to be some wiggle room for things to kind of spill out of the mold. And that's the beautiful dance of this Saturn and Pisces energy. Pisces, all these thoughts that want to come out, all these things that feel, sometimes when I'm talking, it feels like I'm kind of having, you'd say I have an out of body experience, sort of like that. Which is beautiful, which is essentially what, channeling is. And channeling is, it's just a surrender. It's like a surrendering, and we can all do it. And it's a surrendering into not editing to the point where we feel self-conscious, which even as I'm saying things, sometimes in my brain, it wants to like check itself and go, is this making sense? Will people understand me? What if they think I'm crazy? But more and more I find the way to like just quell that and quiet it down, because sometimes the things that you don't have quite formed are the ones that are just starting to gain form. And I want to continue to give myself opportunities to do that. And I hope you do the same. So working with the moon, I think, will be a gift this year. Shameless plug, we can absolutely do it together. I have a community for that. And you can also do it yourself. So why I've built so much around working with moons, because I've been working with new moons as part of my coaching practice even for a few years. Even before getting deeper and deeper into spirituality, I would host new moon gatherings because it is just a gift. It is a gift of the cosmos to birth a new seed. And the full moons are a gift of the cosmos to release something, to embrace yourself, to hold yourself in the fullness of who you are. The moon in her big, bright, beautiful splendor. I've written poems about the moon. I love working with Artemis, who is a goddess connected with the moon. There's so much of my life that has been connected to the lunar. And when recently I had the pleasure of sitting with her, looking at her, and she was right next to Saturn. You could see both of them in the sky. And I asked her, every full moon I talk to her, this wasn't a full moon. I'll talk to her tonight and see what comes through. But this was a conjunction of the moon and Saturn. And I talked to her and I talked to both of them. And Saturn was sort of like she had center stage, and Saturn was there saying, I'm willing to be here to help. Bring your dreams into form. How? Well, your mind and your brain are the delivery systems for your soul. Okay, awesome. Everything that we create that comes through us comes through the brain. Everything. Your brain is this incredible, pulsing, beautiful space of just pure potential. How you write, how you read, your speaking ability, your ability to see colors, to pick up a paintbrush, to do all these things. And even if you are somebody that no longer has the ability to use your hands, like my husband does, for example, his brain is still pulsing with energy, with ideas. He just ends up using it differently. He has his really cool technology called a Toby device. It's an eye gaze technology where he writes with his eyes. He controls the computer with his eyes. He can go basically do most things that we can do on a computer or a phone with his eyes. And it is still his brain that is processing the information necessary for him to bring himself into the world. So honoring the fact that we have these really the best tool, the most amazing tool of the brain feels really paramount this year. Because one thing I know that many of us are tired of is kind of like spinning our wheels and almost walking in the mud of there's so many things we want to do or say or create or this or that we're still kind of like spinning. No more. So here comes the moon and says, hey, I want to help you heal your mind. I want to become this metronome for healing, this metronome for releasing and birthing. Let go, bring in new. Let go, bring in new. Follow me throughout the year. Let's see what happens. Like, all right. And Saturn says, hey, let me help you build molds and containers and spaces for you to pour your magic into and share it with the world. Don't just leave it like out in the ether, because we need to bring it in and share it. Vehicles for sharing, like this, like whatever it is that you want to put out into the world, let's do it. If you have something you've been sitting on, share it in the comments so that we can pulse with each other's creations. Take a breath. Feel. Release. Hold yourself. Honor yourself. How are you willing to advocate for yourself and your own spiritual understanding of the world? How are you pregnant with possibility and wonder right now? Are you feeling sad, sorrowful? Are you feeling full of grief? If so, I see you. The moon also holds you in her warm embrace. In this womb of safety, swaddled, warm, at peace. May you have an incredible conclusion to this calendar year 2023 and a luminous beginning to 2024. May we continue walking in our magic together, discovering new paths. May we be radically optimistic. May we use our beautiful minds and brains for the good of the world and to bring all of our soul dreams to life. May we walk together. May we hold our torch of self in front of us for the world to see. I wish you peace and love and boundless opportunities. And so it is, and so it is, and so it is. Happy everything. All my love and stardust, always. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you. Be well, my friend. Adios.